They said she'd gone too far this time. The woman who'd once been the pride of her unit now stood in the fluorescent glare of a Pentagon conference room, her uniform too perfect to show the storm inside her. Major Elena Brooks, the name whispered with respect across bases from Virginia to Kabul, was about to lose everything she had bled for. It began with a mission that wasn't supposed to exist. Officially, it never did. But the wreckage of that night still clung to her like the desert dust of Kandahar. A drone strike gone wrong, a civilian casualty, and a hidden order that came from somewhere far above her clearance. She'd questioned it, and that was her mistake. Not in the eyes of morality, but in the eyes of power, the kind that didn't like question. Now, under the cold stares of a board of officers, Elena was being told she had violated the chain of command. What they meant was, you refused to take the fall quietly. She didn't flinch when they read the charges. She didn't argue when they said her rank would be stripped pending review. The only movement came when her right hand brushed the silver oak leaves on her shoulder, the symbol of everything she had built. She wasn't angry. She was tired. Tired of fighting wars that weren't always fought for truth. Outside the Pentagon that night, Washington was silent except for the hum of streetlights and the distant sirens that always sounded like something falling apart. She walked toward the reflecting pool, where the air smelled faintly of rain. She sat on the marble edge, her reflection blurring in the ripples. Somewhere, a flag flapped lazily in the wind. For a moment, she imagined it saluting her goodbye. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Major Brooks? She recognized the voice instantly. General Kincaid, she said flatly. Didn't expect your call. You've made powerful enemies, Kincaid said, his tone half warning, half regret. But you also made one hell of a difference. Don't let them erase you yet. Too late for that, sir. They're making sure I disappear. There was a pause. Elena, he said quietly, you didn't hear this from me, but something's moving upstairs. Keep your phone close. The call ended. She stared at the screen, wondering what something could possibly mean. The Pentagon didn't just move for people like her. It moved against them. By midnight, the rumor had spread through the ranks. Brooks is done. Her old team, the 32nd Recon, texted her quietly from around the world. Some messages were short, soldier-like, "Stay strong, ma'am." Others carried more emotion than she could bear to read. "We know the truth. They can't take that from you." But still, she felt it slipping. Her name, her career, her purpose. Everything she'd fought for since the day she left her small Ohio town to join the Air Force at 19. At 3:27 a.m., she sat awake on her couch in her Arlington apartment, the walls bare except for a map of Afghanistan pinned above her desk. Coffee cold. Eyes burning. The television whispered news she didn't care about. Another scandal, another speech. She barely noticed when headlights flickered outside her window. A black sedan, engine idling. Her pulse quickened. The kind of car that didn't just appear in the middle of the night. She turned off the light and waited. 3 minutes later, her fax machine, an old relic she used only for classified paperwork, came to life with a shrill mechanical scream. She froze. Nobody used faxes anymore. Not for years. The machine whirred, paper feeding slowly. 1 sheet. 2. Then silence. She approached like it might bite. The first page bore the seal of the United States Department of Defense. The header, "Confidential, Personnel Action." Her heart hammered as her eyes scanned the words. Effective immediately. Major Elena Brooks is hereby promoted to the rank of Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force. She blinked, convinced she was hallucinating. Below the signature block, in bold black ink, was the timestamp 04:02 a.m. The Pentagon. She looked out the window again. The car was gone. She picked up the second sheet. It was a single-line note. You were never supposed to see the truth. But someone upstairs did. The fax curled in her trembling hand. Promotion? After they tried to destroy her? It didn't make sense. Promotions didn't come at 4 in the morning, and they definitely didn't come after disciplinary hearings. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Brooks, she said, voice steady. Check your email, Kincaid's voice rasped. Then the line went dead. She opened her laptop. A single new message. No sender. No subject. Just an attachment. PDF file. She clicked it open. Inside was a scanned memo marked Top Secret Eyes Only. Her name appeared halfway down, tied to something called Operation Glasslight. She'd heard whispers about it before. An off-the-books counterintelligence mission that dealt with internal leaks at the Pentagon. According to the document, she wasn't being punished, she was being tested. Every word she read made less sense. The hearing she'd just endured wasn't disciplinary at all. It was part of a covert evaluation protocol run by an oversight division she didn't even know existed. A psychological stress assessment. Her insubordination had been the final piece they needed to confirm her loyalty under pressure. She leaned back in her chair, half laughing, half shaking. "You've got to be kidding me," she whispered. But as dawn crept in through her window, her phone buzzed again. This time it was her mother, in Ohio. "Elena, honey, I just saw your name on the news. They said you've been promoted. Lieutenant Colonel Brooks. My God, baby, what happened?" Elena didn't know what to say. I'm not sure yet, Mom." When she hung up, she looked back at the fax. The ink glistened faintly under the morning light, as if freshly printed by some ghost in the Pentagon basement. By sunrise, reporters were already calling. Someone had leaked the story. Disgraced officer suddenly promoted after secret Pentagon review. The headlines made her sound like both a hero and a mystery. But inside, she felt only confusion, and a strange chill that whispered this wasn't over. At 8:45 a.m., a knock on the door. 2 men in dark suits. "Lieutenant Colonel Brooks?" one asked. She hesitated. "That's what they tell me." He handed her a folder. "You're being reassigned. Orders inside. Transport leaves in 30 minutes. "Reassigned to where?" The man smiled slightly. "That's classified, ma'am." She opened the folder after they left. Inside, a single line typed and stamped. "Report to Building 47, Joint Base Andrews." No details, no explanation. Just coordinates and destiny. She stood there for a moment, heart pounding. She'd always been a soldier, but this was different. Somewhere, someone had pulled her from the edge of destruction. But for what reason, she didn't know. As she dressed in her crisp uniform, now bearing the silver eagles of her new rank, she caught her reflection in the mirror. For the first time in months, she saw not defeat, but a spark, a question that demanded an answer. And as she stepped out into the sharp morning air, the city waking around her, she felt it deep in her gut. The war wasn't over. It had just changed shape. The Pentagon had tried to bury her. Instead, they'd raised her higher. The question was, why? The road to Andrews was quiet. No sirens, no chatter on the radio, just the hum of tires cutting through the morning fog. Elena's mind raced faster than the car. She kept replaying the last 12 hours. The hearing, the facts, the sudden promotion. None of it fit together. And yet, something in her gut told her she wasn't being rewarded. She was being watched. The guards at the base gate didn't even glance at her ID. They saluted, eyes straight ahead. That had never happened before. She was escorted to a hangar tucked away at the far end of the tarmac, its doors sealed tight, the air humming with the faint vibration of generators. Inside stood a man she hadn't seen in years, Director Mason of Defense Intelligence. Gray hair, cold blue eyes, the kind that looked like they could see through steel. "Colonel Brooks," he said, his voice calm, almost kind. "Welcome back." "Back?" she asked, confused. "I didn't know I'd left." Mason smiled thinly. "Oh, you left. You just didn't know it." He motioned her to sit at a long metal table. A folder waited for her, thick, stamped with the word "Glasslight." "You think you were court-martialed yesterday?" Mason said. "You weren't. That was part of your initiation." "Into what?" He leaned forward. "A program that doesn't exist on paper. A watchdog buried inside the Pentagon itself. We investigate corruption, the kind that reaches into the stars on people's shoulders." She stared at him. "You set me up." "We tested you," Mason corrected. "You stood by your integrity when every incentive told you to stay quiet. That's why we need you." "And the people who tried to destroy my career?" she asked. He paused, eyes narrowing. "They're part of what you'll be investigating." The words landed like a punch. She'd been dragged through hell just to become part of it. "I'm not your pawn," she said sharply. He smiled again. "You're not a pawn, Colonel. You're the queen we didn't know we needed." Her stomach turned. There was flattery in his voice, but beneath it, calculation. She'd been manipulated before, and she wasn't about to let it happen again. "What happens if I say no?" she asked. "Then the truth about that mission in Kandahar suddenly becomes public record," he said, without missing a beat. "And you go from promoted to imprisoned before the week's over." Silence stretched between them like a drawn wire. Finally, she exhaled. "When do we start?" Mason slid the folder toward her. "You already have." Inside was a dossier with photos, names, and redacted paragraphs. High-ranking officials, all connected through hidden transactions, military contracts, falsified reports, missing funds. At the top was a name she hadn't expected, General Kincaid. Her breath caught. "Kincaid? He's the one who warned me." Mason nodded. "He also leaked sensitive documents to foreign consultants. We've been tracking him for 6 months. You'll help us confirm it." It didn't make sense. Kincaid had been her mentor, the man who pulled her out of the wreckage of her first deployment, the one who believed in her when no one else did. "No," she said quietly. "You're wrong." Mason's voice hardened. "Prove it." He stood, straightened his tie, and left her alone with the file. The air in the hangar felt suddenly heavy. She flipped through the pages, each one painting Kincaid in a darker light. Payments routed through fake shell companies, encrypted communications, coded instructions about operations that went sideways. It was too neat, too perfect. Someone wanted her to believe it. That night, in a secure hotel room near the base, she studied the documents under a dim desk lamp. Her instincts screamed that something was off. The timestamps didn't align. The language in the reports wasn't Kincaid's style. And the encryption key mentioned in one file, she recognized it. It was hers. Her pulse quickened. Someone had inserted her key into the chain, making it look like she was part of it too. "Son of a," she muttered, grabbing her phone. She dialed Kincaid. It went straight to voicemail. Then another number. One of her old team members. "Ma'am, Ramirez, listen to me carefully. Did you ever see anything off about Kincaid's ops back in Afghanistan?" He hesitated. "No, ma'am, but someone's been asking questions about him. CIA guys. They said it's classified. Did they mention Operation Glasslight?" Pause. "How do you—" "Wait, ma'am, that's not supposed to—" The line went dead. She froze. Then a soft click. Her hotel phone picked up. "Colonel Brooks," a smooth voice said. "You shouldn't be calling anyone." "Who is this?" "Someone trying to keep you alive. They're framing both of you. Leave now." "Why should I trust you?" "Because they're already in the building." She didn't ask twice. She grabbed the folder, her sidearm, and slipped out the fire escape. As she reached the alley, two black SUVs pulled up in front of the hotel. Men in suits, fanned out, moving fast and quiet. Not cops, not standard issue either. Private security. She ran. By the time she reached the back fence, a spotlight hit her shoulder. "Freeze!" someone shouted. She didn't. A bullet tore into the metal beside her head. She vaulted over, rolled hard and disappeared into the night. She drove until sunrise, ending up near the Potomac, parking under an overpass. Her hands shook as she opened the folder again. If Kincaid was being framed, she needed proof. Somewhere inside those documents had to be a crack, a clue. And then she saw it. A timestamp from the leaked communication logs, 04:02 a.m. The same minute the Pentagon faxed her promotion. It wasn't random. It was a signal. Someone inside was helping her and warning her at the same time. That night, she arranged to meet Kincaid in an abandoned hangar outside Quantico. He looked older, worn, the lines on his face deeper than she remembered. "You shouldn't have come," he said. "You're being set up," she said. "They're making it look like you sold secrets." He shook his head. "It's worse than that, Elena. Mason's not who he says he is. He's part of the very network he claims to be hunting." She felt the ground tilt. "Then why promote me?" "To clean up their mess," he said bitterly. "You're the scapegoat and the weapon. They'll use you to expose low-level names, then silence you before you reach the top." Before she could reply, headlights flooded the hangar. Kincaid shoved her behind a stack of crates. "Go. What about you? I'll buy you time." He turned, weapon drawn, as the doors burst open and gunfire erupted. She ran through the side exit, heart hammering, smoke stinging her eyes. When she reached her car, she looked back. The hangar was in flames. For a long moment, she couldn't move. Then she turned the key and drove into the dark. By dawn, Mason's face was all over the news. Defense Intelligence Director killed in internal explosion. But Elena knew the truth. The man who died wasn't Mason. The dental records didn't match. Someone had covered their tracks. And somewhere out there, the real Mason, or whoever he truly was still watching. Weeks later, she received another fax. No header, no seal. Just 3 words. "The game continues." She stood at her window, staring out at the morning light creeping over D.C. She was still wearing the silver eagles on her shoulders, but they felt heavier now, as if made of stone. She realized she was no longer just a soldier. She was a piece in something vast and hidden. A war fought not with bullets but with silence and secrets. But for the first time, she wasn't afraid. They had underestimated her once. They wouldn't do it again. She poured herself a cup of coffee, looked at the fax one last time, and smiled faintly. "If it's a game," she whispered, "then let's play." Outside, the Pentagon gleamed in the sunrise, calm, unshaken, pretending nothing ever happened. But somewhere deep inside its walls, someone was faxing another order, and Elena Brooks was already 2 moves ahead. Sometimes the truth isn't buried to be hidden. It's buried to test who's willing to dig it up, and who's brave enough to survive what they find.